All right, guys. Nick from BitTitan. I manage the relationship with AT&T, and today I'm going to give you an overview of MigrationWiz. And what MigrationWiz does, the primary value add is that when you look at the biggest barriers to customer adoption when they're deciding whether or not to move to AT&T's Office 365, it's going to be cost, time, and friction. And anything that AT&T and you guys, the more confidence you give them that the cost is low, there won't be any friction, and it will happen very quickly, the more likely the customers are to sign up. Because this is a very scary transition for them. It doesn't matter if you're an SMB or you're a Fortune 100 or you're a government. Everybody you work with does business via email, and any disruption to their email and any loss of focus will have an impact on their business. So these guys are really stressed out. The IT admins you may be working with could and will get fired if this goes wrong. So it's very high pressure, and I kind of want to empower you guys to have all the information you need to give confidence to your customers that it's going to be really easy and it's the easiest route to go. So I'm going to start from the top. There's varying levels of familiarity, so I apologize if anything's recap, and I'm going to send these out after the call so you guys can reference. So feel free to stop me at any time if you have any questions. What is MigrationWiz? MigrationWiz is the world's only enterprise cloud-based email migration solution. And what that means is there's no hardware to deploy or software to install. Using a web browser and internet connection, you can sign up, configure, purchase, submit, and migrate in a matter of minutes with no prior product knowledge or technical experience. It's a very simple solution. Why do people choose MigrationWiz? Why does AT&T have a partnership with us? We've migrated. Our team has very deep email expertise. Many people from the development team actually architected and shipped Exchange 2003, 7, and 10 while at Microsoft. Our CTO actually worked on the version of Exchange that went up in the space shuttle. So we've done space email before, and Earth email is no problem. We're battle-proven. We've migrated over, I think we're up to 1.4 million mailboxes to the cloud. And that includes everything from consumers, from Gmail, Yahoo, to SMBs, to some of the largest Fortune 100 companies in the world, and literally everything in between. We're the most scalable. We own and maintain the largest migration infrastructure on the planet. We can scale up to hundreds of thousands of concurrent mailboxes per project at any given second with no advance notice. But the number one reason people choose MigrationWiz is because we lower the total cost of ownership. More than any other solution on the market, and that includes free tools, because you really have to think holistically. It's not just licensing cost; it's labor. Labor is the majority of the cost of any project, and we automate away that labor, and the cost of licensing is more cost effective than the cost of humans, it turns out. So we've been very successful, and again, the reason it's so low is because we don't have any hardware software dependencies, and not only in terms of licensing costs does it reduce the price point, but anytime you need to learn new solutions, it increases the complexity. So we can have knowledge workers working, punching above their weight, basically. It's very easy to use. A single tier 1 tech or project manager can manage dozens of migrations concurrently, and the cost is fixed and transparent, and it includes 24/7 support. And we're going to support your customers 100% until the migration finishes up successfully at no charge. And you guys should know that your customers are being supported by our development team, and we own the entire IP stack. If anything happens, we can go and quickly make changes without waiting on third parties. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to escalate something to Microsoft, but it takes a while. And our response time is you'll always receive a response within 24 hours. And because of the robust migration infrastructure, we can complete the migrations quicker than anybody else. And time is money. So this is kind of a chart showing how many on-premise migration servers you need to deploy to match the throughput of MigrationWiz. Now, these are supported systems, and the definition of supported means we will, at a minimum, migrate emails, calendars, and contacts. Most of these will migrate more. So Google Apps is the only one will only migrate emails, calendars, contacts. These are emails, calendars, contacts, tasks. And these two are emails, calendars, contacts, tasks, journals, notes, rules, permissions, public folders. Now, if the customer is on a mail system you don't see here today, we can still connect via the generic IMAP protocols, which is email only. And it doesn't matter where you're migrating from. The UI and the processes always stay the same. Security and privacy, we're a trusted brand in over 90 countries. Our migrations are fully automated. There's no human management until a support request is submitted. There's zero deployment. There's no hardware or software swimming around in your environment or the customer's mail environment. And we do not store mailbox data. Our data centers are used for translation. If you look at something like Google Apps, it has different item properties than Office 365, and we have to add and modify convert to get it into Office-ready format. Credentials are used to access the mailboxes, and they're encrypted and automatically purged completely from our system within 90 days, but can be removed at any point in time with just a couple button clicks, and we're PCI SAS 70 Type 2 compliant. So I just want to briefly touch on our customer base before we jump into the demo. I mentioned some of the industries we work in earlier, but we also, work with major brands like BMW and Aston Martin and Zillow and Pandora and LSU and U of A and ASU and, all sorts of financial banks, credit unions, stock exchanges, local, state, federal, and foreign governments, including police departments, telecom and telecoms customers. So there really isn't a customer type or a customer scenario that we're not able to handle. So I have
one quick question, Nick. So this is the MigrationWiz that comes with the 142 mailbox setup, correct?
Correct.
Thanks.
Now we have two offerings. We have the AT&T self-migration portal, and this is great for those unsophisticated SMBs that are barbers or haircutters, bartenders. But once you get over 50 seats, you need advanced options that aren't available. And the reason those advanced options aren't available is because they confuse SMBs. So if it's above 50 seats, I suggest sending them to MigrationWiz. And actually, I believe never mind. But so migrationwiz.com, it's free to create. There's no obligation. We don't need a credit card. All we need is a first name, last email address, and phone number, and a agreement to our user agreement, and we're good to go. And when you get started, the first thing you're going to do is create a connector, and a connector means where email is today and where we want it to be tomorrow. If your customer is coming from a major service provider, like let's say Rackspace, they're a well-known endpoint, and we actually have their server information pre-programmed into MigrationWiz. Your customer nor you need to know the actual server URL. Now, if your customer is coming from a less popular provider that may not be listed, or they're coming from on-premise, simply copy and paste the OI URL into the box here. On the destination side, you're going to select Office 365. Now, I'm coming from Gmail today, and if the customer is coming from something that's not Exchange, they can use the source type dropdown to select GroupWise, Google Apps, Exchange, Zimbra, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Note that we migrate via admin credentials. Admin credentials are awesome. They're really, really awesome because they allow your customers to migrate without specifying the mailbox passwords to individual end users. 90% of our support requests are related to incorrectly provided user information. So this goes a long way to ensuring the project goes smoothly. Now, you won't have admin credentials on the source for all customers, but a majority will. I'd say the only time you won't have it on the source is when they're coming from a hosted email provider. I'm not sure if Rackspace has it, but it really depends on the provider whether they have admin credentials available to these customers or not. You'll always have it on the Office 365 side. Anytime it's on-premise Exchange, you'll have it. GroupWise, you should have it. Lotus Notes, you'll definitely have it. Zimbra, you'll have it. Office 365, you'll have it. Google Apps, you'll have it. But hosted Exchange is the only one where we may not have it. Items migrate is dynamic depending on the source and destination. We also populate some KB articles here that is also dynamic. So we have a lot of advanced options. The one I'm going to highlight is performance. By default, we're going to migrate 100 mailboxes concurrently. However, we can scale up 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000. We'll migrate as fast as the source server and the destination server will allow. We'll never be the bottleneck. So if they're coming from someone like great bandwidth, and that includes all email hosters, whether it's Google, it's Rackspace, it's Intermedia, we can migrate all the mailboxes concurrently because AT&T also has great bandwidth. Now, on the flip side, if the customer is coming from an on-premise and he has a T1, this needs to be scaled down accordingly so we don't oversaturate their network. Now, we also have advanced folder filtering, we have date range filtering, and I'll touch base on this towards the end of the demo. So we're going to go ahead and continue. And we're going to specify the mailboxes that we wish to migrate. We need to have a one-to-one mapping of source and destination mailboxes. And note that the domain names can be the same. That's totally fine. And you'll note that I'm doing it by hand. Because we're only doing one. But for customers with a lot of mailboxes, we have a bulk import. And this will add more rows as needed for as many mailboxes as this customer has. They can also download a predefined CSV file, fill it out, and drag and drop it onto this page. We have a PowerShell script, depending on how big their project is and how savvy they are, that actually go into the Google Exchange or Lotus Notes environment and extract the user list into something you can just simply copy and paste here. So I'm going to go back. And one thing that I do want to highlight on this page, the last thing on this page that I want to highlight is that checkbox. I don't know the username or password of this mailbox. Now, this is a great feature for when admin credentials are not available on the source server. And the reason is because if you select it, it will send a password request to each end user's mailbox saying, hey, I swear this isn't a phishing attempt. Please click this link and provide your credentials securely to MigrationWiz. And once they click submit, the migration will kick off. And this is a great alternative to the status quo. And the status quo is a consultant or IT admin who does not have admin controls will go in and reset the password to all the end users' mailboxes. Now, that presents a security risk because there's a common password, and if the intern knows it, they can log into the CEO's mailbox. And typically what the IT admin will do is just not tell anybody the passwords. Now, this locks people out of their mailboxes, which, as we all know, you do business via email. So this will affect revenue, productivity, and opportunity. And it's a bad customer experience. And the customer may not end up activating if they have to, shut down their email for a period of time while they migrate. So this is a great solution in those cases. Do you guys have any questions there? Okay. So that's literally it. I'm going to go ahead and migrate the mailbox. And we can delay them.
Nick, I did have a question. I mean, how successful have you been with that email going out? I mean, are we taking some education of the client during the sale?
I think that there's steps you can do to make it more successful, and there's things you can do to make it less successful. I think that if you send it default, it's not going to be as successful as if you say, hey, this is Joe from IT. We're switching everybody's mail systems. This is not a phishing attempt. If you have any questions, please call my cell phone. And then any end users who are hesitant can call Joe, the IT admin, and confirm that this is not an attempt to steal their password. That's what I recommend. And if they do that, it's very successful. There might be an end user on vacation, but, as long as they're in the office, it'll be fine. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
So I'm going to submit the migration, and it is going to fail because I provided the wrong password. I mentioned earlier that 90% of support requests are related to incorrect user credentials, and MigrationWiz empowers our customers to be able to triage and resolve issues on their own. We're going to give your customers a lot of information. We're going to tell them exactly what happened, why it happened. Here's the steps they can take to confirm why it happened, and prove to themselves that it's not a MigrationWiz issue, it's actually on the customer side, and the steps to resolve it. And this will go ahead, and it probably should be failed right about now. Failed, learn why. So this is the error message. It will tell us whether the error is on the source or destination, and it will tell us what's going on. 401 unauthorized. This means my credentials are invalid. Invalid credentials. This happens quite often. Sometimes I even mess up my demos by providing the wrong credentials, not on purpose. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go back to the mailbox, and we are going to edit it. We'll go ahead and provide the correct credentials.
Sorry. So just to confirm, this is you're moving your Google app email to Office 365.
That is correct.
Okay. Just wanted to confirm that for everyone.
Slight clarification. It's actually Gmail, which is different from the custom domain Google Apps, but correct. Basically the same infrastructure.
Okay.
Now, in the next 30 seconds, mail is going to begin to flow in real time. First, the folder hierarchy will begin to be created, and it's pretty much a one-to-one copy. Note it's not a move. We're not modifying or deleting any source data. It's a pure copy operation, and the fidelity is very high. We're going to bring over times, time zones, dates, folder hierarchies, foreign languages, complex or recurring calendars are no issue. If there's pictures with those contacts, if there's large attachments, we're going to bring it all over. And mail should begin. Oh, there we go. So it's literally that easy. And while the migration is occurring, we're not going to lock end users out of either the source or destination accounts. They can continue to send and receive email. This all happens in the background. We're not going to affect their business productivity. So what we recommend, the strategy we recommend is the pre-save strategy. And essentially, what the customer is going to do is they're going to start the migration weeks before cutover because they want to get all the mail data there, and they don't want to, if anything does go wrong, it doesn't need to be a fire. It doesn't need to be a lot of pressure because they're not supposed to cut over for another month. And they can take their time to resolve it instead of calling me at 2 a.m. on my cell phone. So we recommend migrating email data older than 90 days. And the reason is because with each license, the customer can do up to 10 passes. And we'll never cause duplicates if we've migrated an item previously, but we won't propagate edits or deletes. So if an end user updates their calendar item after starting the first migration when they do a Delta Pass, we're not going to update the calendar item on the destination to the new date and time. So for that reason, if you migrate email only and only email older than 90 days on the first pass, you'll be fine. Once something's 90 days old, it doesn't move from where it's from, whether it's the deleted folder, the junk folder, a specific folder, inbox. It's not moving, typically. So once that completes, you can go ahead and go to the DNS records. I recommend a Friday evening to give the IT admin, a couple of days to triage anything if something goes wrong with the MX move. And then once mail starts propagating, I recommend an immediate Delta Pass to catch emails that are younger than 90 days, as well as contacts, calendars, tasks, journals, notes, rules, etc. Now, let's talk about when something goes wrong. If you're not able to solve it yourself using the steps provided by our error message, you can escalate to our support team, and you'll always receive a response within 24 hours. One second, I gotta grab the door. Now, response time depends on the issue. If there's 20 possible resolutions and we're troubleshooting a source or destination that we don't have control over or physical access to, we could have investigate many different possible reasons for the issue before stumbling across the correct one. Now, obviously, if we discover it on the first attempt versus the 20th attempt, response time will be faster. So keep that in mind. And again, if you start the pre-stage weeks before cutover, the response time really doesn't matter. As long as it's within a day, you're going to be fine. So we have a lot of advanced statistics that are available to communicate to the customer the progress. And so you guys can give them confidence that the migration is going well, or they can actually log in and view and know that the migration is going well. So we have how many folders are migrated. We have every type of item that we're migrating, how many of the items we've migrated, and if we've gotten any errors and we're unable to migrate a specific item. And the most common reasons for not being able to migrate an item is because it's larger than AT&T Office 365 will allow for attachments, or it's corrupt and you can't migrate it with any solution. Over here on the duration and speed, we're seeing 2 gigs an hour out of Google and about 300 in Office 365. Besides bandwidth, 365 throttling policies will always be the bottleneck. Well, typically. They're pretty aggressive. We typically see 250 to 400 megs an hour in 95% of cases. So we also have all sorts of cool charts that IT admins can use to communicate to their management team. Now, let's talk about the reasons that people choose MigrationWiz over free methods like the Microsoft built-in free tools or the PSD import-export. So we'll start with the PSD. There's a lot of value in pushing a great migration solution to your customers, because if you leave them to go off and find their own solution and something goes wrong, they may not activate, they may blame it on you, and if they have a rocky transition to AT&T, it makes it much harder to upsell additional services. They may not trust you guys. So providing MigrationWiz ensures that the migration goes well and that they trust you guys and that they're going to have a great experience. And there's a lot of issues with the other solutions out there, like the PSD import-export. It doesn't remap X400 and X500 legacy DNs. It's actually, anytime you reply to email, you're going to get an NDR. It doesn't have very robust reporting. You have to manually babysit it. You have to export it. You have to FTP it. You have to remount it. If no one's there to do it at a specific time, it's going to stuck, and the migration's not going to progress. You can't use the mailbox while the PSD import-export is occurring. There's no technical support. Calendars might be orphaned. And it's just generally not a great solution. And as I mentioned earlier, the most costly part of any move is the human labor. So some customers say, hey, I have 5 people on IT. Why would I pay for a solution when I'm already paying these guys? Well, if you look at their salary, if you look at how many hours it took those 5 people, the cost is probably going to be greater than using MigrationWiz to begin with. Now, the other issue there is people will say, hey, I have an IT staff. Why don't they just do it? Why should I pay, MigrationWiz or AT&T? And another great reason is typically IT departments are not overstaffed. Typically, they're understaffed. So that means any time that this IT staff devotes to doing the email migration project, the day-to-day activities are going to fall through the cracks. Now let's take a look at the Microsoft free tools. As I mentioned earlier, these people that are migrating could get fired, and it's a scary process. And if you are going to wait on Microsoft support, it could cause a bad experience. If you compare BitTitan against Microsoft, the guy that's doing support for this tool, he may live in India, and he doesn't really care about his job. And you look at BitTitan, and we're a 50-person company, and everybody here is extremely passionate about what we do. The other advantage is that because we own the entire IP stack, anytime there's an issue with our code base, we can make a change and push it out that day. And occasionally, we'll even jump on the phone with the customer to resolve issues, and we're much more accessible. I spoke with Lisa today. She had a customer that's running into a Google Apps authentication issue, and she gave me a call, and I called her right back, and I made the support team make that their priority, and there was so it's a minute versus over 24 hours with the Microsoft support. They also have limited support for source systems, Exchange. For example, 2003, you can't go 365. You have to do coexistence. You have to go to 2010 or 2013 first. And that increases complexity, increases cost. Their IMAP support. IMAP is a loosely defined RFC, and most of the big providers have implemented it correctly, but there's thousands of tiny IMAP providers seeing 100 mailboxes for a couple customers. And a lot of these people have not implemented correctly, and Microsoft's implementation just isn't robust enough to be able to ensure that those incorrectly implemented IMAPs, the emails are migrated correctly. So there's not a lot of rich statistics for debugging. When stuff does occur, you're not really sure why it happened. And just to be transparent, I've never used the tool. This is things our customers tell us.
Cool.
So I think that's the end of the presentation. Does anyone have any questions? What do you guys think about that migration? How easy was it compared to how you guys, have done in the past?
I know it looks easy to me. Hey, Stan, Ed, James, you guys, what'd you think?
It looks straightforward. It looks easy enough. I'm still confused. I mean, you're saying it doesn't cost any money, but I'm confused with this MigrationWiz and what the first two mailbox and the $140 fee and then the $18 per mailbox. Is this all the same stuff, or am I missing something, or am I just?
So I'm kind of confused too.
Okay, so here, let me see if I can clear it up for you. So when a customer orders, right, we sell them the activation migration service, which is $140. Okay, and that service itself includes us migrating 2 of their mailboxes initially. Okay, so we will migrate 2 of their mailboxes to Office 365, and we will, be there with them for 90 minutes to have the technical support, right? So that is at the base level. When you sell Office 365, you will want to always sell that additional service. Okay.
Are you using MigrationWiz to do that?
They do use my 2 MigrationWiz licenses to migrate those mailboxes.
Okay.
Okay. So then the other part of it, right? At the end of that 90-minute session or however long it takes for them to migrate those 2 mailboxes, the customer is faced with a decision. They can either continue the migration themselves by doing PSTs or using MigrationWiz as a third party, or they can tell the technician that's working at AT&T that they want them to continue migrating for the customer. Okay, does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay, so that is where you find the $18 per mailbox fee.
If our people continue to help them with MigrationWiz. Now, if they decide not to, do they pay you guys, Nick, MigrationWiz?
Yeah, and this is something I'm working with Jared on. Our list price is $11.99, and there's no reason AT&T shouldn't be able to sell the licenses at the $4.99 price point directly to the customer if they're not interested in the professional services.
Yeah. So we're working on a partnership there to be able to resell it. But as of right now, you would just recommend to your customer to use MigrationWiz.
Well, it all depends on the customer scenario. If he's got an IT guy and he wants to use MigrationWiz, he can and get the licenses for third party a lot easier after the first 2. Or if there is no IT person, let us be the IT team for $18 each additional seat.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, that's what it would be.
Or if the IT guy feels he's good, Nick, he can take it on himself and do it. Worry about being fired.
He has to worry about being fired at that point.
So to give you guys some background, I own our syndication channel. I work with our 12 syndication partners and also with our, the top hosted exchange providers around the world. And a lot of these people have customer problems with activation rates. And if you leave the customer to activate themselves, there's a significantly less chance that they're going to activate and end up using the mailboxes that they bought from you guys. Now, there's a bunch of reasons that could happen. Maybe they can't figure out the tools that were recommended, or they can't figure out DNS. So from what I've seen from the people that do sell email very well is that they always recommend MigrationWiz, because telling a customer to choose between 3 other options and then not supporting them through that move just isn't a great customer experience.
You're not getting an argument from me. I just want to make sure I know how all the piece parts fit together.
Absolutely.
Because again, I'm taking this training from an operational standpoint, sales support. When the salespeople just go out and tell, oh, it's a piece of cake. You go to this portal, you plug in 1, 2, 3, and it just happens. I need to know, okay, which of the 3 blocks didn't you tell the customer about?
Totally understand, and I think that as you guys continue to have more conversations with customers, you're going to have additional questions that are going to come up, and I want to let you know that I'm always happy to make myself available to ensure that you guys are as successful as possible in your guys' role. You can call me, you can email me, you can bring me onto the phone with the customer. Anything you guys need, I'll provide for you.
The other question I have for you, I mean, from doing this for as long as you have, tips and tricks on, to watch out for. If a customer has a POP account, what should we be watching out for? If a customer has IMAPs, if they, who presents the most problems?
That's a great question. So by far the most difficult systems are POP and Lotus Notes. Now, Lotus Note systems are inherently unstable, which is why the customers are leaving them. Many people have been on them for, a decade and a half, and they've upgraded from 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8, and it's just a bad product. So there's some subset of Lotus Note servers that are just so awful that there are going to be problems. 90% of Lotus Notes, 95 will be fine, but there's inherent design flaws in the Lotus Note system. And the other one is POP. If the customer has the POP on the mail server, we're good to go. One thing that you should note, though, is that due to POP being created in 1983, the protocol is not great. And we're going to take all the mail and we're going to place it in one folder called the inbox. So in those cases, I would recommend, depending on how many POP mailboxes there are, I would even recommend PSTs just because it'll maintain the folder hierarchy. The other issue is that if the mail has been deleted from the server and downloaded to the client, which is often the case, maybe about 40% of the time. And in that case, we're not actually able to access the end user desktop, so we're unable to migrate the mail data. And then in that case, I always recommend a PST import-export as well.
Okay, because Jared, that's what that customer I sent to you the other day was having. They were posted on AT&T's POP servers, and we were having difficulties. I think it's gotten resolved by now. That's good to know.
Yeah, that is good. Cool, good. Well, if you need any other action items for me, just let me know, and I can work on that.
So a couple other, fast facts is that Lotus Notes is our only system that requires a downloadable, installable extractor, and the reason is because it doesn't have public-facing APIs. Any migration solution will need to have a downloadable component for Lotus Notes. But it doesn't need to be installed on the Domino server, just the Lotus Notes client. And the more clients you put it on, the more mailboxes we can migrate concurrently. Another fast fact is that public folders are migratable, and we need a separate connector for those outside of the mailboxes for the project. And the cost there is 1 license per public folder. Each license can migrate up to 50 gigabytes of data. And they can be migrated the same mailbox as many as 10 times. And if you're ever, explaining the Delta Pass concept to a customer and you're having a tough time, maybe the customer doesn't understand, I recommend our go-to analogy, and that's moving. So when you move, so let's say we're moving across town, you're going to pack up all your stuff, you're going to put it in your car, and you're going to drive, and you're going to unpack it. And you let the post office know, hey, please reroute all the mail that's going to this address to that address. But that mail that's already en route is going to be delivered to your old address. You can't change that. And you're going to have to drive back across town, grab the mail, and go back to your house. And that's pretty much what a Delta Pass is. It's scooping up the residuals. But I think that's the bulk of my training. I just pinged one of our engineers to see if he's interested in doing a desktop deployment. We can actually reconfigure the Outlook client from MigrationWiz programmatically. But it looks like he's not available, so maybe I can send over a recording of it when he has time to record a session.
Cool. Sounds good. We're out of time too, so you guys, thanks everyone for joining. Guys, I'm gonna do my best to schedule some one-on-ones with you next week. I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording.